What is up, everybody? It is Og here, back with another video, and in today's video we're going to be doing the SM Cath, Armory, and Library 1 pool in 11 minutes as a Paladin. It's honestly incredible. We've been doing this on the stream for the past day, trying to figure out the best strat, where to kill the mobs, how to drag the mobs, the fastest way to get through the instance, and have as minimal time as possible actually doing the runs. And we've gotten it down to about 11 minutes, guys. It is honestly incredible, and seeing the amount of damage, the amount of numbers you're about to see on the screen is pretty ludicrous. So if you guys want to check it out, definitely come hang out at twitch.tv/Arleus. Feel free to ask me any questions you guys have about the run, but we're going to jump into it now. I'm going to focus on going through the actual strategy of the run, some tips and tricks along the way first, then we're going to jump into the gear, and we're going to jump into the talents. This run will still be viable in TBC. You're only going to lose about 10% of the experience that you're going to have right now from being level 70, so it's still going to be really good. Starting up, we aggro the front mobs. We aggro those front mobs, drag them to the door. Now, the reason we do that is because we won't be able to aggro them later. Pop a bop in order to open up the door, otherwise you're going to get interrupted. Now, run over here, aggro Mograine, and try to book it out of here. Unfortunately, I take a little bit too long here, aggroing Mograine and then trying to get out of there. It's early in the morning, and I just didn't do it very well, so I actually get stunned right here. This is the only time I've ever actually been stunned in the building. It's probably occasionally going to happen. Hopefully you live through self-heals kind of like that. You won't be able to pop bop. You won't be able to bubble because it's bop's on cooldown. So you just won't be able to do anything really. And so just hopefully you live. Whatever happens though, if you have to run back in, you have to run back in. This is a ledge though where you could heal. So if you jump up onto that ledge right there, that is a reset spot. The mobs will stop moving, and then you're able to heal up real quick and then get back into the run. I recommend running throughout the run with Blessing of Wisdom and then swapping over to Blessing of Sanctuary at the kill phase. But one important part is aggroing the mobs. Now, a lot of the mobs you're going to aggro from Consecrate, a lot of the mobs you're going to aggro from Judgment. Almost all the mobs, though, will automatically aggro onto themselves, except for the two lower corners up here and up here. So you want to make sure that you use Consecrate to aggro both of the two lower corners, otherwise they probably won't aggro during the pool. So you're going to see me pop a Consecrate over on the side here that we did before, and now pop a Consecrate as we run around this side right here. At this point, though, we've gotten 3/4 of the instance, so we have a really good amount of the instance. We now want to make sure we get some distance on the mobs, hop up onto here, hop up through the window, and then try to make sure that you can basically gather some space between you and the mobs so you're able to cut across this field. We want to cut across the field and decide whether or not we want to go for a heal or whether we want to go straight to the kill phase. If you want to go for a heal, jump up onto the side and heal up. If you want to go straight to the kill phase, pop Blessing of Freedom and cut across the open area. Now, the only thing that can really slow you across the open area is the slow and frost bolts, which Blessing of Freedom will both counteract, so you'll be good to go. And you can just basically jump down right there and get across. However, if you want to heal up, jump up on that ledge, heal up real quick. Now, going into the kill phase, what you're going to want to do, guys, is you're going to want to put on Seal of Wisdom. You're going to want to switch to Blessing of Sanctuary and Sanctity Aura. I'll be going through the spec later, but Sanctity Aura is what you're going to want to be using. Because of our spec, we're going to be able to get an extra 30% damage with our Consecrate, and you're about to see how much damage Consecrate can do. Where you want to kill them is also very important. Now, I picked this kill phase right here because of this little alcove corner here. What happens is that I jump and turn my back to this so that the mobs actually can't get behind me. If the mobs can get behind you, they're going to do a ton more damage. If they're in front of you, though, you can parry, dodge, block, and so you can take a lot less damage. You'll be able to live, and just with the self-healing that you're going to have from your items, which we'll go into later, you'll be able to survive through this entire pool. It is very important, though, that you do turn around and make sure that you are facing towards the mobs. I'm going to Seal of Wisdom. I'm going to judge one mob, even though it's going to die really quickly with that Seal of Wisdom. Pop another Seal of Wisdom, pop Consecrate, and then pop my Zandalarian Hero Charm. Now, I'm assuming that you're using a non-use trinket like Zandalarian Hero Charm. If you're not, obviously you wouldn't be popping it. But Zandalarian Hero Charm, how it works is that it is going to consume a charge of additional spell power. And so that spell power starts off at 204, but for every spell you use, it's going to decrease that spell power by a given amount. However, if Consecrate is already on the ground and you pop Zandalarian Hero Charm, it increases the damage of Consecrate without taking a charge away, which means you still have the maximum spell power. So you drop Consecrate first, then pop Zandalarian Hero Charm. You can see that we also have a Wrath of Cenarius proc, and so we actually get up to 800-ish spell power for the kill phase, which allows us to melt the mobs. Once we have about 2 Consecrates that have gone through, we're going to drop the 3rd Consecrate and then pop Bubble. Now, the reason for popping Bubble here is I obviously was fine. I didn't need to bubble for health, But what it does is it pulls the sorcerers forward. The sorcerers are previously just standing back there casting, and so it's going to take a little bit longer to clean them up. But by popping bubble, whether I need it, and so I save it in case I do need it, or just to pop it to pull in the mobs, that pulls in the mobs, they stop casting, run up and melee you, and now you can see that we're able to take out the sorcerers, get them down really low, and by the end of the kill phase, when all the other mobs are dead, the sorcerers are pretty much dead, so I can just drop another consecrate, finish off the last couple, and then get out of there and get on to the next instance. Cath, all in all, 4 minutes. The kill spot's very important. Looping around, you have Pursuit of Justice, which we'll go into in a little bit, and so you're going to be able to run plenty fast ahead of the mobs. But you can see here the amount of damage we do. From 5 consecrates, we did 295,000 damage. That means in 40 seconds, we did 295,000 damage. In reality, mobs run away after about 3 consecrates, which means the entire kill phase, where you're actually taking a solid amount of damage, is about 24 seconds long. This is at level 60. It is incredible. Here you can see the healing. So Drain Life regular is Skull Flame Shield. Drain Life dot is Demon Forge Breastplate. And so you can see that we have, 16,000 healing there over the course of the kill phase. Obviously, we're going to be going into the gear a little bit later. Paladins, as opposed to mages, Paladins are slightly faster right now in SM, but are gear dependent, whereas mages can do it in literally any gear. I just had a guy actually who told me that he did SM Cath and Armory in 8 minutes without any gear on a mage. So Paladins need a little bit more gear for sure, and it's going to be a little bit tough with your Blood Elf Paladin to pull off these kind of farms. I will show you guys tell you guys how you guys can do it, but once we get into TBC, the itemization really picks up, and the Phase 1 Prebis gear is actually about 1,000 spell power, which is about 600 more spell power than I currently have. So it's going to be really good. Through Armory, we're basically going to run to the end of the instance. Along the way, I want to talk a little bit about the consumables that I use. I choose to use Greater Arcane Elixir, and I choose to use Blessed Wizard Oil. Now the goal here is to basically increase my spell power as much as possible. The big change with pre-patch that allows Paladins to be able to do this so fast and so much better is that Consecrate no longer scales at a 33% spell power coefficient, but rather scales at a 95% spell power coefficient, which means that every single spell power I have drastically increases the damage of Consecrate. Because of that, I want to go as much spell power as possible while being able to live, and so mitigation plus spell power is huge. I did not pull any mobs as I ran through here, but if you did pull a mob, you can reset them in this second to last hallway by jumping up onto this ledge right here. Those mobs will then reset, and then you can go into the last hallway. In the last hallway, though, I do end up pulling the Evoker. I was trying to avoid him, but ended up pulling. And so what you just have to do, same kind of idea as Strat, just pop, bop, and then go over to the door and open up the door while you have bop. This run is a lot easier than Cath, and the odds that you die in Armory are honestly much lower than Cath. So using bop is not an issue whatsoever. I do get a little risky with the kill phase strategy that I use just to try to stack up the mobs perfectly, but you don't need to do it the exact way that I do it, and you could do it a lot cleaner. But here, once we aggro Herod, because I want to start pulling him into the actual runs, we come out of here. That spawns an additional 4 mobs right here, so we pull those as we run through. And then what we want to do here is we want to kind of zigzag through these dungeons as much as possible, pulling the mobs with consecrates and judgments on the corners. The only mobs that won't pull are kind of the outer perimeter corners. So like the inner perimeter, always going to pull, but the outer perimeter sometimes are not going to be able to pull. So you want to make sure that you run into those mobs. I also like to jump turn like that so that I'm always trying to face the mobs in front of me so that I can block, dodge, parry, etc. If you don't, you're going to be taking a little bit more damage, but as you can see, we are getting a ton of healing procs that are keeping us up very easily. We're just running through the instance, pulling all the mobs in the instance. This crossover here at the end will take a little bit of damage to make sure they're hitting you from the front, aggro the last 2 mobs, and then come out in the open courtyard. Now my goal of the courtyard is to aggro up the mobs and get them to the front so I can line of sight the sorcerers so that they basically run into the rest of the group, similar to how we bubbled in the last pull. So what I do here is I run down the right corridor, aggro those mobs, cut across here, making sure that they're facing my front. I turn around here and get kind of stuck there, so I actually take a lot of damage. Make sure you just jump up and don't hesitate and get stuck. But you're able to heal up with, Drain Life and Skull Flame Shield and things like that proccing. And so it's not too big of an issue. As you run there, you have so many mobs on you that they're proccing pretty consistently. But now we have all the mobs, run into the quarter, same kind of thing. Switch over to Seal of Wisdom, Judge Seal of Wisdom, pop down my Consecrate, Pop my Xanilarian Hero Charm, Wrath of Cenarius procs, and we're immediately doing 185 damage a tick for consecrate. 2 consecrates, and the mobs are running away. Find Herod. He's pretty easy to find. He's the big guy in the middle of the group. Find him, target him, and then just start DPSing him down because he will actually do this Whirlwind ability where he goes immune. While he's doing that, obviously you can't do any damage, and so you just want to make sure that you're meleeing him as much as possible. One talent that you do have is called Reckoning, which we only put 1 talent point into it, but you can see that it procs a ton. And what it does is it makes you swing twice. And so you're swinging a ton, and you're doing actually a lot of melee damage to the one mob that you're focusing on. So it's good to focus on Herod so you can burn him down as fast as possible. Here, guys, though, you can see 9 minutes. We have Cath and Armory down. Armory, not a problem at all. We've killed 165 mobs. We did take out the boss in Cath as well, but we didn't focus on trying to kill White Maid as well for the actual loot. So we just focused on the boss and then ran out and reset. We're now ready to go over to Library. Library is basically an addition that you can throw in there. If you guys don't want to do it, you don't have to. It gives a little bit of experience to the boosties. Probably, I would say it amounts to, you know, like 5 to 10 experience, 5 to 10% experience per run. So it's a nice little bonus. It's not Cath, it's not Armory. It's about 35 mobs-ish, but it is something. And so if you have some extra time, because you can only, you know, optimize perfect runs at 15 per hour if you're trying to go as efficiently as possible, then you can go ahead and go into Library. If you're just trying to get through 5 lockouts as quickly as possible, don't go into Library. But we come into Library, we pull half the courtyard on the left, run in, pull the rest of the mobs. The annoying part is that they do Hammer of Justice, so you don't want to pull too many mobs until you get to the kill phase where you're actually burning down the mobs, because you could take a lot of damage. So you can see here, we actually take a lot of damage and we're running low on health. I recommend having, you know, health pots just in case that does happen, where you take a little bit too much damage, but typically I'm just going to trust in Skull Flame and Demon Forge Breastplate to heal me up in the kill phase. Aggro Houndmaster Loxy, and because we already aggroed the entirety of the courtyard in the middle, on the left side, we're able to just cut straight across to the kill phase. I like dragging the mobs to the front of the instance. A lot of the time, too, you're going to have a healer in your group, so you can leverage the healing from that individual. Now, as we come around the side here, there's this little candlestick. The best place is probably in between the candlestick and the wall, but sometimes it just doesn't work to get there. So you just basically go up against the wall here, turn around, and same kind of thing, guys. You're going to pop your Consecrate, then pop your Xanilarian Hero Charm, and melt through the mobs. As you can see here, we are 11 minutes in. Target Houndmaster Loxy as much as possible, but these mobs die very, very quickly because they're only level 34, and so it's actually less than 2 Consecrates before they're actually taken out. But you can see the kind of DPS that we could do. We could do about 30k DPS in Cath, which is absolutely insane, the amount of damage that we can do. The runs are incredibly fast because of our talents, which we're about to get into, and in just over 11 minutes, you guys can go ahead and get all the mobs down for all 3 runs. Incredibly, incredibly high amounts of experience. Once you get them done, though, every 5 lockouts, I recommend going and repairing, because unfortunately, with doing this run, our shield breaks very quickly. So you can see our overall durability armor is at 61%, but our shield is yellow, and our shield will probably break within the next run. And so you basically run out of Cath and you run over to the bulwark over on the side here, which I'll show you in a second. And then you are able to repair there, even as Alliance, which is really nice. You don't have to worry about going to cities or having multiple Skull Flames or things like that. So here we are at the bulwark, right outside Western Plaguelands. Run over to this Argent Dawn person, repair, and then get right back at it. You could potentially aggro a mob if you run too far to the right, the Horde mob, so just try not to aggro them and just run away if you do aggro them. So the question I get most often is, how are you running so fast and how are you healing so much? So first, let's start off with the talents themselves and why we're able to run so fast. We don't have Zanza or anything like that. You guys can use Zanza if you would like to. But the way you want to do these runs is actually going Retribution. A lot of people are going to think you're going to want to go Prot to mitigate the damage you're going to take, but in reality, you want to pump out as much damage as possible and use the heals from your armor in order to heal up. So we go down the Retri. We start off just running through, you know, parry chance and things like that. But the first important talent is Pursuit of Justice. So Pursuit of Justice reduces the chance you're going to be hit by spells by 3%, which is nice, but it increases movement speed by 15%. Now in Classic, this is only 8%, so this 15% is actually a huge buff and allows you to run through the instance incredibly fast, aggroing at the mobs, staying ahead of the mobs, and taking minimal amounts of damage, and it also just allows for a faster clear time. From there, we move on to Crusade. This increases damage done to pretty much every mob by 3%. Sanctity Aura, 10%. Improved Sanctity Aura, another 2%. And then you have Vengeance. And so the way that Vengeance works is it gives you a 1% per talent point bonus to holy damage, so consecrate, after you deal a critical strike. Because you're swinging so fast, you're actually getting a lot of procs of Vengeance, and you're going to be at 3 stacks in no time. And so Vengeance will then increase your damage by 12% because we only have 4 points, so we can get Reckoning, which we'll talk about in a second. But these 4 talents alone then increase our damage that we are doing by 27% on Consecrate, which means that we can have those 185 damage Consecrate ticks because we have all that additional damage that is going on. After we get through these talents, though, we're going to go over into the Prot tree. We're going to go for damage mitigation. Now, I'm still torn between toughness and shield specialization. It really depends on your gear that you have. You want to mitigate a lot of damage from the mobs, but you don't want to mitigate too much damage because you want to have your shield still be able to proc the Skull Flame shield. So I personally want shield specialization just so I can live a little bit easier. But if you guys want to put it into toughness instead of shield spec, that works as well. Important thing to get those Guardian's favors, you can use Bop every 3 minutes instead of 5. Which is nice, but then we get down to Reckoning and Blessing of Sanctuary. Blessing of Sanctuary reduces damage that you take and also causes every single time that you block to reflect damage. So this is actually a decent amount of damage, but more so it reduces the damage that you take, which is huge for pools such as this. And then Reckoning, as I said before, gives you a 2% chance after being hit by any damaging attack to make the next 4 weapon swings generate an additional attack, which means you basically get to hit twice. Now, it's only 2%, but because you're getting hit by a ton of mobs, it is a massive, massive amount of uptime, which means that you're basically just hitting constantly. This is helping you regen mana with Seal of Wisdom, or if you're on Seal of Light, helping you heal yourself as well. So there's 2 different conventional ways of thinking about how to do the AoE farming on a Paladin. The first one is going to be a Reflect build, and so there you're focusing on items such as Cloak of the Flames, Essence of the Pure Flame, Noggle Ring, using Retribution Aura to try to reflect as much damage as possible. Even if you're able to get up to about 100 reflect damage, though, you're only going to be able to actually do 50 DPS per mob because the mob itself is only going to have a weapon swing time of about 2 seconds, which means that you're going to only be able to do half of the reflect damage. It is much, much better to focus on a spell power build where you're drastically amplifying the amount of damage that you're doing with Consecrate instead, and so you can see that you can melt the mobs just like before. So this is my gear. And so obviously I have gear that is going to be a little bit more difficult to obtain. So I have, 5-piece Judgment, and I have Cloak of the Brewlord and things like that. End of the Dreams. So I have a lot of really good gear, so I'm able to pump out 365 spell power. However, the majority of my spell power for the actual kill phase comes from procs. And so Wrath of Cenarius increases my damage by 132, Zandalarian Hero Charm 204, and then having Great Arcane Elixir and having Blessed Wizard Oil, that actually increases my spell power and pushes it to over 800 just by these 2 items alone, or these 2 items plus those procs alone. And so even if you don't have amazing gear, if you focus on having defense plus these 2 items, you're able to have a lot of spell power. You then synergize that with Demon Forge Breastplate and Skull Flame Shield, and this is another reason why you want to have the spell power build over the Reflect build, because these items also scale with spell power. So Demon Forge Breastplate has a 3% chance of stealing 120 life from the attacker over 4 seconds. So what that means is that every single second I'll be healed for 30. However, it's a 40% spell power coefficient, which means that for every 100 spell power I have, that increases the healing on it by 40. So if I have 800 spell power, that's an additional 320, and it can proc off multiple mobs at once. And so you can just see me have a ton of green heals coming in as like plus 100, plus 100, plus 100. That's Demon Forge Breastplate. Skull Flame Shield, 3% chance as well, 95% spell power coefficient, which means if I have 800 spell power, I'm stealing 800 life from a target enemy, and so it's just giving a massive, massive heal. So what I want to do personally is I want to start building a gear that has enough mitigation that can, decrease the amount of damage I'm going to take so I don't get one shot, but also give me enough spell power so I can melt the mobs and then heal myself. Obviously though, especially as a fresh Paladin, you're not going to have the opportunity to get that kind of gear. So I wanted to build a gear set that you guys can actually use, and you guys can get this gear set in probably under a day played on your Paladin that you have right now. Now, this gear set right here focuses on Soul Forge Helm, which is basically just the Lightbringer just upgraded to Soul Forge. If If you just want to have a Lightbringer, that works as well. We have the ZG neck, Cloak of Akari Whispers out of ZG or any spell power cloak. We have Demon Forge Breastplate and we have Skullflame Shield. Ardent Custodian, Force of Will, which is a farmable, drop off General Anger Forge. Zandalarian Hero Charm, so get it from a ZG run. Maiden Circle, buy out of the auction house. Wrath of Cenarius. This is about a 6-hour grind right now, but this is going to be Abyss all the way to Wadake, and I highly, highly recommend that you guys, pick this up now so that for Wrath of the Lich King, up until that, you're able to farm with the best in slot item. And then just finish it off with some Soul Forge gear. Just this gear alone, which is not too bad to get right now for a fresh tune, 169 spell power. And so you're really only running at about 200 less spell power than I am, which will give you plenty of spell power to be able to melt the mobs. You aren't as tanky, but Force of Will when it procs, decreasing the melee damage that you take by 25, is really nice, and you should have it up for the majority of the kill phase. And so with this gear alone, you may have to do it in 2 pools, but you should be able to easily burn through SM Cath, Armory, and Library as well, all in under 15 minutes. Now all this is focused on gear that you're going to be able to get right now and doing the farms right now, but this is actually going to be even easier in TVC. And the gear that you're going to get in TVC is already going to be itemized. And so if you don't want to worry about getting the gear for the next 5 days of grinding, this will still be the strategy to use in TBC, but you're going to have a lot easier time getting the gear to be able to melt mobs like this and actually do way more damage even.